Arthur has this interesting theory that he calls his special solution, which I fought against for a long time. I thought it was horrific and a nightmare scenario and completely unrealistic. But as time has gone on and we've talked about it and argued about it more and more, or I've come to accept it in a number of ways. And one of the reasons I've come to accept it is because I think we may not have any other choice. And what what this is about is the solution, what the problem that this is a solution to is the problem of human-caused problems, such as global warming, and that they are going to get to grow in complexity and danger to the human survival to such an extent that we're not going to have any choice but to do something really drastic. So is that what you'd like to talk about, Arthur?
Why don't you describe it? I think that could be interesting since you're persuaded.
Huh. Okay.
At long last, I found it deeply offensive too when I first thought of it. But just a little background quickly. I read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley when I was 16, and I thought it was appalling. A totally collectivist society that actually programmed you in the bottle, and that you weren't born, you didn't have a biological mother. You were born in a hatchery, a mechanized assembly line that lasted 9 months and grew you. And if you were meant for menial labor, they simply stunted your intelligence right in the bottle before you were decanted and shipped off to the tropics or wherever. You were immunized for tropical diseases if you were going to the tropics. It was a complete, brilliantly efficient collectivist system. There was no hope of any individual arising. No Neo would arise from this. It was complete and utter, what I considered tyranny. And I was appalled at the age of 16. And now, maybe this is the meaning of if you're not a conservative by the time, because what Katie's going to describe is quite conservative.
Interesting.
You know, if you will, conservatism is crowd management with knobs on, and that's
okay. We'll develop that as we go.
Anyway, so I've come around, much to my amazement, being a champion of an individual. That means I've done what the goddamn hell I please my entire life, broken every rule I could get away with, and I intend to die breaking the rules. You'll never take me alive, in short. In any case, what I've come around to is thinking that Brave New World is probably the only way, something like it is the only way the human race is going to survive. And with that...
Well, I mean, I just want to say this interesting because that you say that you've always been terrified since you were a teenager of the collectivist system. And I've actually was the reverse. I haven't been afraid of collectivism. I've been a communist since I was a teenager. And I've thought collectivist systems would actually be a much preferable system of governance than our individualist system of capitalism in this country.
That is interesting.
So that's interesting that you come up with this collectivist solution, and I've been fighting against it.
Yeah, right. Jack Sprat could eat an ambulance. So.
That's right. That's right. I guess the point is Arthur was calling us the Lockhorns yesterday. We were out filming. So maybe that's it. When you get to a certain stage in relationship, no matter what your partner advocates, you automatically take the opposing point of view.
Oh, look here. The sun is going down. No, it isn't. The Earth is rotating on its axis away from the freaking sun, you idiot.
Well, so, all right, I'll tell my take, and it may not be quite the way Arthur would put it, but you can tell me, you can correct me.
I hope it's different.
Wrong. So
hope we haven't turned into that much of a homogenized milkshake.
Well, Arthur, as he's gotten older, has, both of us are very liberal in perspective and have had a lot of hope that some of the problems
I just like
we
the word
see.
Liberal.
There's some of the problems. Hey, this is my take.
Right.
If you wanted to talk, you could tell your version. So, we've had a lot of hope that things were going to work out. And one of the things that happens as you get older is you start losing that hope. As I said, the show about despair, you start thinking, man, it is not going to work out. We are not going to, this country is going to continue in its conservative ways. And it's going to continue making some of the same stupid errors of judgment over and over and over again. For instance, the BP oil spill, what an awesome opportunity to start a Manhattan Project to get us to a carbon-free energy future. I mean, it was like handed to the Obama administration on a silver platter. Did they take that advantage of that? No, no. And so this is the sort of things you start despairing as you get older. And so Arthur also was seeing, not only was he losing hope that there was going to be these solutions were going to come up out of the democratic system, but that at the same time, the problems that we are facing are increasing in complexity and severity. 50 years ago, maybe we couldn't solve problems, but there was only so much damage we were doing to the planet. But as we've, our chainsaws and our Caterpillar tractors have covered the earth, and we can cut down the last of the rainforest easily, and we seem to be doing that. Then things like environmental collapse, global warming, which could bring about the end of the human race, maybe not the end of human race, but the end of human civilization as we know it. To me, that is very, very conceivable. That global warming would bring about agricultural collapse and the rising sea levels and changes in climate such that we could not, we would not end, humans would not end, but we would not be able to maintain our civilization.
I have to jump in here. You always hedge your bets. I mean, you don't hedge your bets. It's like you seem constitutionally incapable of getting your mind around the possibility.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but there's a goddamned possibility the human race is going to go bye-bye. Doomsday clock. Combination of a nuclear war, accidental or intentional.
Okay, well,
coupled with environmental collapse.
Right,
it could spell the end of humankind by its own hand, not an asteroid coming in and blowing us to bits. I just want to say that.
All right.
Let's at least entertain. Let's just say this. In the entire history of humankind, this is the first time that we have faced the possibility of self-extinction. Maybe it's not guaranteed. I don't think it is guaranteed. I think anything is guaranteed. But the possibility exists. That's what I'm asking.
All right. And I was
real important.
And I was, saying I think even more people could envision a collapse of our civilization than I know. I'm just saying that we could talk about different levels of catastrophe here. To me, the collapse of human civilization would be pretty drastic. Our lives, as we know it, would be over, and certainly.
Start working on the next
nuclear weapons. People have kind of forgotten about nuclear weapons in the last 25 years, as if they've just ceased to be an issue. The Cold War is over; we can forget about them. And thankfully, there's a film that's really that's coming out, the documentary that hopefully will raise people's consciousness that nuclear weapons still are a very clear and present danger to the human race's survival.
Countdown to zero, it's called. I'm sure it'll be seen by dozens of hippies at the fine arts. It'll make a big difference. Go out and drink extra beer that night.
Okay, so Arthur tells this analogy, which I love, which is imagine that the countries of the world are that one person represents each country in the world, and we're in this lifeboat. Okay, so there's 186 or 188 people in this lifeboat, and each sovereign nation person has the right to do whatever they want to in their seat. And they can if they want, take the ice pick that's under their seat and start jabbing into the wall of the rubber lifeboat. Because that's their sovereign right. They can do whatever they want. But this lifeboat, this earth, will bring down all of us when we allow that one person to continue jabbing our joint collective lifeboat. And like I said, 50 years ago, the earth was still big enough. The consequences of our actions were still isolated enough that maybe our actions couldn't bring down the lifeboat. But now that's changed. That's all changed. The human race has grown in numbers and grown in power, that our actions can bring about those kind of consequences where we end as a species. So, that's pretty dire. And it seems pretty conclusive to me. Like I said, I look at global warming and what scientists say, and if it's not the end of the human race, it's the end of life as we know it. So,
The vax on cigarette smoking aren't all in yet.
So what do you
Those
do?
are the people, hey, morons, global warming deniers, morons. Your bus is leaving.
Just recently, a week or two ago, I read
Who do
about.
you think's feeding you that it's all a myth? The modern equivalent of Philip Morris.
So a couple of weeks ago, we read an article about global warming, and it was some scientists, and it was like, okay, it's conclusive, it's happening. These consequences, are dire, and so what's the solution? And one of the scientists said, well, since the problems are global, the only solution is global government, but then everyone just threw up their hands and said, well, that's impossible.
That ain't gonna happen.
So there is no solution. So that's the situation we find ourselves in, folks, is that we've grown to the point where we're creating problems on a global scale, but we seem incapable of governing ourselves on a global scale. The UN, as everybody thinks, is basically a joke. So what do we do? What do we do at this point? And this is where Arthur's special solution comes in.
I wanted to say final solution, but that's being copyrighted.
So I've been talking for 10 minutes here, which maybe some people would say is a change.
Yeah.
Katie doesn't usually go uninterrupted for this line.
Talking. I'm bored with it. I'm tired of hearing myself talk.
Well, did I do pretty good so far,
well.
except for the part about not being
just include the possibility of the extinction of the human race, the most advanced 4,000 million years of planet evolution, the cutting edge, the only species that has real analytical thought and the ability, we think, Game of God, Recovering Your True Identity, our first book, gameofgod.com, if you want to look it up. The only ones who have the ability to take the next step in evolution. First step in evolution, the creation of the universe. Second step in evolution, the dawn of life. Third step in evolution, major step, the dawn of analytical thought, which is what the parable, the Aesop's fable called the Garden of Eden, really means, children. It's not literal. It means the moment in which they saw that they were naked and it was naughty and they covered themselves up. And we departed from the entire wild animal realm and started on the journey to the next stage in evolution, which we believe is the shedding of what we call subjective ego domination, an inevitable phase of craziness that happens to any gorilla that starts thinking. A lot of mistakes will be made, but the shedding of the subjective ego and the entry into the epoch of objective mind. Mr. Spock, leave Captain Kirk behind. That's what we're up for. If we don't blow ourselves up, if we don't extinct ourselves, if we don't crap our nest to the point that we choke on the fumes, all of us,